Good afternoon. I think to most of you it'll be pretty apparent that I'm stood next to a Foden 8-speed gearbox that's stood on its bell housing, and the reason for that is I've done all the work in it now. The primary shaft's in, the clutch brake's in, we've obviously resealed this back end, we've done the selector, we've put the 4-speed selector back on for the main box, but she's obviously filthy underneath. Best way of cleaning it is stand it on its end and really get into it. In fairness, I think I might even paint it in this position, you know. Be pretty easy, won't it? You know, it's not going to go anywhere, is it? So it's on some blocks, it's pretty rigid. I am forcing it about, so it's pretty rigid. I was keen to get it off the transmission jack. We've got the transmission jack there, and the reason for that is just to prove that classic vehicles, cars, lorries, motorbikes are just like women. When they hear that somebody else or something else has had something, they want the same. So the fleet master has clearly found out that the S80's had new primary shaft seals in the gearbox, so hers has promptly started pissing out, and there's a little video of it there. So I need to get my transmission jack, get up to the shed, pop that box out. I was in two minds whether to put this box in, but this is set up for a Foden clutch, the other's set up for a light clutch, and I'm not sure about the cross shaft for the thrust bearing. So we've been busy with other jobs, a little bit on the Citroen, coming up on the Citroen engine, just as a bit of interest from my mate Clive as much as anything that, but anyway I thought I'd include it. Been really busy with work, like everybody else I've had a touch of cold, and it's been a bit too cold to get on with some of the stuff. But anyway, have a watch of this. This will bring us up to date. The gearbox is done now, all but for painting, and we're going to get on with that big Cummins next. That'll be brilliant, won't it? That's what I'm looking forward to, because once we've done the Cummins, we start assembly, and boy am I ready to start assembly. I'm sure a lot of you who are watching are ready for a bit of assembly as well. Right, good stuff, let's crack on. Right, here we go. So this is the cylinder head off the DS3. As you can see, we've got the inlet cam in. Just oiling up the rocker gear there for the exhaust side. This is the variable valve timing cam with the gear on the end. That's the end stop for the cam. Doesn't actually have main bearings, as it were. These are on roller bearings. I find it easiest to build the inlet cam up and assemble it in those carriers, torque everything down correctly before adding it to the cylinder head. So I'm just getting all the bolts in now to secure those cam carriers. Everything's been through the parts wash, obviously. There's the back two for the stop for the gear. Just going to run these up with a D-walt. M6 bolts with an 8mm head. Torque on these is about 7 foot-pounds from memory. I haven't got a torque wrench that goes that low. A couple of them I slackened off because they felt tight, so I've just gone through them with my little ratchet and just given them a tweak, because you know, you sort of know when they feel about right, don't you? That's gone pretty well. Cam feels nice. First two springs are in there, look, for 1 and 2, and this is really the object of the video, to show you how I do this job. Me and Clive did this last time on the mini engine, and I think we were just glad to get away with still having his eyes and our fingers left. So as you can see there, we've put in the two long intermediate rollers, put in the cap to retain the top, And this is the first of the special tools, which is an M6 bolt by 50mm. As you can see here, I'm bending the spring to go under the camshaft, because this is the tight bit where you try and get the cam spring under the camshaft. There I am pointing at the bolt. So a bit closer in, you can see it's a standard bolt, and we're going to wind it in. Just look at the tension on the spring. This is why you need some special tools, because you need to be able to control that energy within that spring, obviously. So remove that bolt. The reason we put that bolt in was it's got the shoulder on, so that also placed the carrier centrally. And here we are with special tools 2 and 3, which is 75mm M6 bolt with a piece of inch by quarter inch flat strip with a 5/8 hole in it. So now I'm winding off the pressure on that M6 bolt, and you'll start to see when the gun goes on now, you'll see the spring lift. You see the spring lift? Yeah. Get the washer out the way. Putting some lock and seal type Loctite on there, mild version, so you can strip it down. That's why that hole needs to be so big that you can get the bolt through. And again, just torque it up. Don't overdo it, just get it nice. Slacken off the two nuts so that we can get the bolt out, just wind it out with the gun. So put some Loctite on that bolt with the shoulder on. Now wind it in and just run round those and make sure everything's nice and nipped up. Here's special tool number, I don't know what we're up to now, number 3, number 4, and you can see it's a screwdriver with a hook in it. Note that the hook is sort of a designed to grab hold of the spring and retain the spring, because you're pulling it down. It's useful to have another screwdriver just to pop it in. And there we go, that's that side fitted. This is from a different view on the other side, might be a bit easier to see. I've just pointed out the spring there. Clicked onto the spring, pull it down, you can see it going down. In she pops, easy as that, straight into the intermediate rocker on. Right, this is number 4, that last one was number 3. Just thought I'd show you again doing the back one. And again, you need that, just a bit of a hook attachment in that grind on the screwdriver just to make sure that you retain it. Yeah, here we go, you can see the lever going up to the camshaft as well there. That one's not quite in, so the screwdriver becomes a hammer. Lovely. Squirt a new clean engine oil there. And get the 27mm on it and just rotate it through a couple of times. So all of them appear to be working. You'll notice that the VVTi cam is right back. And there we go, there's a close-up of that intermediate rocker lever in position. Right, I've given the bearing a light coating of bearing grease just to give it a head start. The manual says to press that bearing on, but obviously it slides on quite easily, so I don't know whether we should be concerned about that or not. So I've got 2 of these bolts from Delaney's at Macclesfield, bolts hardened and what have you, obviously too long. That's the original bolt that snapped, and this is the one that I've cut down for it. I think that that should be fine. There's plenty of thread in there. I'm keen to avoid it bottoming out. I'm going to put some Loctite on it and we'll see how we go. Surprisingly, no actual torque spec on this. So what I've done there is I've tightened it up, and we're now going to have to get the feeler blades in between the gears to see if we've got enough spacing for the lubricating oil. So we've given the main shaft securing bolt another sort of tweak. I did an initial check with the 10th blade and it seemed quite loose. So I'm going to check it now again with the 10th blade. Yeah, there's middling there. I'm pretty happy with that. We've got to make sure there's some float in the gears to ensure that the gear oil can get to the needle roller bearings. And there's obviously, you know, you can see it in it. There's middling. That's obviously a sliding one. What these are fixed. And that you can see that. You know, there is some travel in there, and I think I'm going to leave that at that because I just don't think I want to put any more stress on that bolt. You know, I think she's tight enough. So let's get the primary shaft in. Right, we've cleaned the surface up. The main shaft bolt is locked up. We've done the adjustment. We need the primary shaft in. I think, you know, if I'm really honest, I'm not happy with this particular design. I don't think it's Foden's finest hour. You know, if we were building something here that was American, you know, a Cat or something like that, which was a similar situation, we'd have some sort of tab mechanism to mechanically not lock the bolt. I'm relying on Loctite and some torque. I can't, you know, I just don't know what Fodens were drinking the day that they planned this, but anyway. So here's our primary shaft. I've cleaned out the inside, I've cleaned the bearing up, I've greased the gasket on already. The gasket's fitted and on already. So we just need to get it in there. It is going pretty evenly and pretty steadily. Quite happy to tap it in and not draw it in on the bolts because it's travelling reasonably easily. And that's a massive improvement on where it was already. There must have been going on for 1/4 of an inch of play in that. There's hardly any now. Feels so much better. Right, primary shaft's in. So we've now got the sleeve that the thrust bearing rides on. As you can see, there is some wear on it. Unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about it because there's this flat on the actual housing that goes to the bottom so that we can fit the clutch brake assembly. You can see here that I've fitted the new seal and she's obviously greased up. So really we just need to get on with it. No real delicate way of putting this on. Just got to be careful. That's going nice, just nice and even, and it's going up lovely, that. no actual torque setting in the book for these. But half-inch UNF, I think you're alright up to about 75 foot-pounds, aren't you? Something like that. Squeeze the grease out on the gasket, that should be fine. So I've got the clutch brake assembly in, and I just wanted to show you that I've decided to go with the ring in the position that it came out, and that rear back ring in the sort of the position it came out in, because I was in two minds whether to flip that around, but I couldn't get any conclusive information either way really, so I've gone for the safest option, which is obviously to build it as I found it. Right, so we've got the housing tightened up and on, and we've got the two bolts for the lay shaft brake or clutch brake, call it what you will, in place. Everything's rotating nice and free. So I need to get the actual brake plates in there again now. So we've got that first backing plate at the back, friction plate, that goes over those two studs. So we've got the friction plate in. Now getting together now the outer cover plate and putting in two diaphragms. Obviously a bit of insurance there. So that's the other sandwich plate in place, push plate. And the cover plate. So as we look at the clutch brake housing now, we've obviously got the 3 discs in, the 2 diaphragms and the cover plate. I've been told that in service, when these failed, people actually repaired these by entering the box through that inspection plate underneath. Now I've had my hand in there and you've a job to get your hand in, so that must have been a real treat on a March evening when it's been snowing, the lorry's been out all day, it's covered in hot oil and cold snow, and you've got to start changing that diaphragm. Right, that should be pretty good now. I just need to replace this pipe between here and here. Right, put an olive on this side. First olive's done. I'm just going to trim my pipe back to where we need to be. Just bog standard quarter pipe. A little bit long there, I'm going to trim a little bit off it. I can just feel that crushing the olive up now onto the pipe, so that's gone pretty well. Lovely. So we could do getting the compressor going now, blowing some air in and seeing if we've got a clutch brake. Right, we've currently got primary shaft movement, the engine's ticking over. You want to select a gear. To select a gear you need to stop the primary shaft and stop the lay shaft so that you can select it cleanly without grinding the gears. So when you press the clutch pedal down on the S80, it hits a valve on the rod linkage which fires air into this pipe and stops the gearbox. So we're going to simulate that clutch pedal by blowing some air into the valve to see if it stops the gearbox. Here we go. I think that's pretty conclusive, isn't it? soon as you put it on, she locks, release, she's free. Job done. Right, well, we're on to the 4-speed main box selector unit now. This is upside down. The hole there is actually for the breather, not a drain bung. This plate here is where the selector gate goes, and I'll show you that in a bit. This end is where the actual gear stick connects on the linkage. This bushing supports the remote shaft. There's some whacker in it, and they are prone to leaking. There's an O-ring groove in there, and it's obviously had a seal in. The seal, if we start with the seal is a steel cup that pushes into the housing like that, so it was a bit of a sod to get out, with a full rubber seal in there, not what you'd call a modern seal at all by any standards. I've replaced that, or I am going to replace that with a new modern seal. Fits in there quite nice. And we've got an O-ring to replace the one that was in there. Now this O-ring is the one that's come out. It's got a real flat spot worn on it, and I think that, you know, it is sacrificial just to support the rod going in and out. So we'll get rid of them. First job is to get this seal into that groove. Just use this socket to drive him home. So that looks pretty good. You can see that she's gone right up to the shoulder, and you've got a really nice double lip seal there. Lovely. Right, I just need to trim that gasket up. Well, that seems okay. There's no lift in it. Right, let's get this bottom plate on, but wait till you see this. So this thing of beauty is the bottom plate that goes on there. Okay, so this bottom plate, not sure what it's made of. I would say phosphorons. It's got the FD part number in it here. Obviously, I would say that it's been forged at the factory. Fair bit of weight in it, fair bit of value in it, and I think there's times with Foden when you don't have to look very far why they didn't make a lot of money, and this has got to be a reason for it. It's got the select pattern, gear select pattern, so that would be reverse, you know, and I'm assuming first, second, third, fourth. It was leaking, they do leak, so it also is getting a good smear of sealant with the gasket. Nice bit of squeeze out on it. So just give it a wipe round now with some brake cleaner. Everything's obviously going to get a really good clean up before we do the final paint. I am going to paint this. I'm not going to mask it up and leave it on show, because, well, quite honestly, you'd have to get on your back and lie under the lorry, have a look at it. Just about there now. Breather's fitted. We've got a new copper washer. He's all been blown out. As you can see, we can see the gate now, the operation of the gate. So that's reverse. Bring it out reverse, bring it up. That's first, second, third, and then back for fourth. Easy peasy. Right, one of the big concerns with this is this very narrow gasket surface. And if you had to guess where some of the water comes in on this type of gearbox, or on this, on this gearbox, it's got to be along here. So again, I'm going to use the sealer on there. Don't particularly like to use the sealer unless absolutely necessary, but I do think it's necessary on here. I've got a gasket. Right, don't think we're going to take a lot of arm at that at all. So this is the reverse gear indent here. As you can see, that's where we've got the hook that would go onto that if necessary. So I'm rolling the box over in neutral. You can see there's no gears selected, it's just power coming down up into the main, splashing it about. If I put this side plate alongside, you'll see here is the dipstick for the gear oil, and it's roughly halfway across that bottom lay shaft. The reason I'm showing you that is simply that over the years I've done quite a bit of HGV recovery and what have you, and the most common question you get asked is, why are you taking the prop shaft off? So if the truck is ticking over, the engine is running, the oil's about here, level wise, and it's getting flung all around the box by these gears. Everything's going to be coated in here. It's going to be doing roughly 600 revs per minute at idle, and it's just splashing it everywhere. Everything's getting coated. If on the other hand, the gearbox is not being driven by the engine, but it's being driven by the prop shaft because the rear wheels are turning, the engine's off, and it's on tow, all you get is that. And of course, this gear and this dog are out of the level of oil, which means none of the bearings on this main shaft are getting any oil, which means that it'll overheat and it'll seize the gearbox eventually. And it's as simple as that. That is why when you tow, you take your prop shaft off. Well, we're getting through it. Hopefully next time you see it, it'll be painted red and we'll be on with the engine. So I'll see you next time.